you, Madam Chair. Thanks for holding this hearing. I appreciate it. I've been listening to some of the testimony and the back and forth. Let me turn to Mr. Raimondo. Mr. Raimondo, in 2017, when you were sued by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the states of Washington, Illinois, and Pennsylvania for cheating borrowers out of their right to affordable loan payments, do you know how much money you made?
Yes, I do.
And what would that be?
In 2017, it was approximately $6 million.
$6.5 million, according to your company's filings. In 2018, when you were sued by the state of California for cheating borrowers out of their rights, do you know how much money you made?
Approximately $7.7 million.
And in 2020, when you were sued by my state of New Jersey for engaging in deceptive and misleading tactics when servicing New Jersey student borrowers, do you know how much money you made?
Yes, I'm familiar, Senator. I'm very well compensated and certainly appreciated. It was about $8 million.
Thank you. So over this period of time that I've referred to, you've earned over 20 million, and that's not even counting 2021. In that time, do you know how much money these lawsuits have alleged your company has illegally added to the debts of millions of your customers?
They actually have not alleged that yet, Senator.
Well, from what I've read, it seems that the answer is about $4 billion.
That estimate was that if 100% of all borrowers were in forbearance, that's how much borrowers paid. So clearly, that was not an estimate of how much we overcharged, Senator.
Well, let's put it this way: it's a lot of money, isn't it?
Well, that is 100% of borrowers who are student loan forbearance is a program that has been authorized by Congress and is an eligible repayment option for borrowers. In some cases, it's a very legitimate program. For example, you cannot enroll in an income-driven repayment plan if you're past due. So one of the tools, in fact, probably the only tool available to help a borrower enroll in that program is to grant them a forbearance, to bring that account current so that they are now eligible to enroll in an income-driven repayment plan.
Well, let me just say, if I was one of your shareholders, I'd be concerned that you pocketed $20 million in salary and compensation, but yet your company might be responsible for a couple of $1 billion to American families. If I was one of your customers, I'd be calling Secretary Cardona to cancel my student debt immediately. But as a U.S. Senator, the one opportunity I have is this oversight to drive home the review of entities such as yours. And I think the chair is right to do so. Let me turn to Ms. Perez. And thank you for talking about what student loan debt does to families like yours. If President Biden had forgiven your $35,000 in student loan debt in January, do you know how much you would have been taxed on that forgiveness amount?
No.
Yeah, that's okay. Most people didn't know that forgiveness was actually looked at the IRS by income. You would have faced a surprise tax bill of $7,700 at a minimum, which is pretty outrageous. Luckily, with working with Senator Warren and myself on the Finance Committee, we ended up with a provision of law that no longer has forgiveness be subject to income, so that individuals like yourself would not be subject to such a surprise tax bill. And I'm glad to see that we were able to do that. And your story is vividly an example of it. Finally, Dr. Baker, the federal government has been aware of the student debt crisis for some time now and attempted to alleviate through the student loan forgiveness program. So currently, the government has a couple of options for student loan forgiveness, including through the income-driven repayments program and the public service loan forgiveness program. Out of the 43 million borrowers who hold student loan debt, how many have been able to successfully obtain forgiveness through IDR?
Independent analysis, I think, estimated it at around 32 currently, 32 borrowers.
Out of approximately 2 million student loan borrowers who have been in repayment for more than 20 years, just 32 have ever qualified for loan cancellation. What's the approval rate for the PSLF program?
As Senator Warren mentioned, it's about 2% currently.
2%. That's an approval rate, not a rejection rate. So as of June of 2020, approximately 98% 80% of borrowers who applied for PSLF have been rejected. So are IDR and PSLF providing the promised student loan forgiveness to broad swaths of student loan borrowers?
So it is not, they are not currently doing that. I think as several of the other experts on this panel have mentioned, there's significant amount of reform that is necessary in the IDR and PSLF programs in order to create the benefits that they were intended to.
All right, there's a lot of reform that seems to be necessary. Madam Chair, do I have another minute of time? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Senator Menendez. Take another minute.
My final set of questions. Today's hearing is not only important to highlight the impact of the crushing debt burden on America's working and middle class, but also the importance of broad-based forgiveness. Professor Yannalis, your research purports to show that canceling student debt accrues benefits disproportionately to the wealthiest borrowers. In other words, that's not a progressive policy. Is that fair to say? Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that is correct, Senator.
To reach this conclusion, you viewed the benefits of debt cancellation in the context of the supposed generosity of these existing loan forgiveness programs for low-income borrowers, particularly IDR. Do I have that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And to be specific, to reach this conclusion, your research assumes every single low-income borrower has managed to enroll and stay in IDR for 20 to 25 years, having their debts wiped out as if they were eligible. Is that correct?
No, that's not quite correct. What we assume is we have different scenarios. In one of the scenarios, we assume that every borrower who would benefit would successfully enroll in IDR. In a couple of other scenarios, we assume that, for example, the Senate and the House passes legislation to make IDR programs more generous, and we actually find that that gives more forgiveness to low-income borrowers and borrowers of color.
Well, I think what I'm referring to is your recent op-ed, which you wrote in the Washington Post, which, quote, said, "We looked at what would happen if every borrower who would benefit from an income-driven repayment plan were put into one and forgave loans after 20 years." So out of the 43 million borrowers who hold federal student loan debt, how many have been able to successfully obtain forgiveness through IDR in the 25 years since it first became available?
So that's an extremely misleading question, because the way that these plans work is they provide forgiveness after 20 or 25 years. And the most popular of these programs only started in 2009. So we just haven't had 20 or 25 years. So there was an earlier plan called income contingent repayment. Very few borrowers took that up. So we would expect to
the bottom line, with all due respect, we have had 32 borrowers that have ever qualified for loan cancellation. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning than having your 20-year-old federal student loan canceled today. That doesn't sound very progressive to me. So I hope that President Biden will take advantage of this rare opportunity to bring relief to working families that need it the most. Thank you.
So that's an extremely misleading statistic.
I think your analysis is extremely misleading, to be honest with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. Senator